idea was, okay class, what does the red marker stand for? Debt, thank you. So if you got a pile of red money in your pocket, and it's going to Mark Udoff, he says, I'm sorry, I'll take it, but I'm sorry. Now why would he want to do that? He wants a good university. He wants an affordable public education in California, right? Well, it becomes affordable under certain circumstances because where does the money come from that turns red when it goes in your pocket? Now I'm drawing it red because there's a longer story here, but you'll have to come to another class to find out, right? But notice what happens here. The UC Regents also said, we're sorry, we'll take your money. Right, we're sorry, we'll take your money. Remember, there are some regents who stand with you, and I don't want to dispute that, but there are a lot of regents who also stand for their pockets and their board positions and their businesses and their investments, and let's not forget that either. I salute the regents who stand for you. They're out there. You can find their names. But this is how it works. That red money into the bank is not really red money to the bank. It's green money to the banks, and it's green money to the regents who hold board chairs, memberships on bank committees, and have investments in large-scale investment firms. And it is actually in their interest, remember this, to increase your fees so that you have to go out and find a place to pay this extra debt, right? Okay. Now the other problem is, they use the financial crisis as an excuse to raise your fees, right? The state has less revenue, banks are not as willing to lend because credit's frozen up. You start hearing all these stories. Let's pretend it's real. Let's pretend they actually do not have the money, okay? Let's pretend. And this is all assuming that this money actually is not pretend in the first place. Now, when that money goes away, what happens to the student standing in the middle? Not only do you get less loan money, it's at a higher interest rate. Your Cal grants dropped in half last summer. And what happens if that little pile of red money under the student here isn't as tall as your UC fees? And what happens when they keep going up every year?
No more students.
The students go away. I know there are more people to talk, and I don't want to stop any students from having their say, so I'll just stop with this. This was a student in my class in the fall. His name was Jared. He actually held a Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation scholarship to UC Irvine, but when he found out that the Cal grants got cut in half this summer, his pile of cold black cash wasn't as big as some people's pile of cold black cash. And the fees went up, the Cal grants went down in late July, or sometime in August if I remember, and he's got to pay his fees in September. Who's going to come up with several $1,000s if you already don't have the money in the first place, when the economy has tanked, and so on? Well, I give some credit to Jared because he came the first day of class. He didn't tell me this at the time, but he did not have the money to stay. He was waiting, he was hoping, he was searching around, but he didn't find it, and he never came back to the class. He sent me an email 3 weeks later and said, This was my last year at the university, and I couldn't go because the fees went up, loans went down, Cal grants went down, and my class enrollment went down as a result. Two more things about that. It does matter that Jared is African American, all right? It matters. If y'all were around yesterday, over by the Student Center around noon, the Black Student Union gave us some explanations for why it matters. African Americans and many other minorities find it harder to put together that extra cash on short notice. From a family wealth perspective, it's harder sometimes to come up with that money. Now, see, on the other hand, I have a student who had a hard time coming up with that cash, but he asked around. He got $100 from an aunt. He got $800 from a distant uncle he hadn't heard from in 15 years, but he hit him up for it. You know, that kind of thing. It happens sometimes, but it doesn't happen for everybody. So I just want to repeat one of their demands from yesterday.
Yes, Thomas.
And that is financial aid should be decided on the basis of family wealth, not personal income. I'm going to turn the mic over to somebody else, but first I want to say, I think Michael Drake might be hurt that you misinterpreted his message as a threat to free speech. And I think his feelings might be hurt if you thought that he was implying that you had something to do with nooses, KKK hoods, etc. And let me say, first of all, that the police actions that have taken place on campuses, there's a whole history of them getting out of hand. This is March 4th, but remember, there's a nice reason for why we chose March 4th for the date here. But when you're faced with police around campus, remember that they expect to be there to protect you, but sometimes they feel threatened by truth. They feel threatened by a lot of people, and just like anybody, sometimes they get nervous, all right? So keep that in mind when it's happening. And there's another date I want you to remember, partially for selfish reasons, is my birthday, May 4th, right? But there's another reason to remember May 4th in this context. May 4th, 1970, 4 years ago. Anybody know?
Kent State.
Kent State. The students who were marching at Kent State on May 4th, 1970 did not have weapons. They were not the students who were involved in some illegal activities from the night before. But it's hard for people with guns to make distinctions like that sometimes. It's hard for people with tasers to make distinctions like that sometimes. 40 years ago, May 4th, 4 students got killed. Let's not forget that, and remember, though, that people do get nervous, but keep saying the truth and say it in loud voices, in large numbers. And thank you very much.